Hare Krishna, dear devotees. Good morning from Sridham Mayapur. My name is Madhavananda Das. This is our daily adventures in Srimad Bhagavatam. So we're reading from the third canto, chapter 29, which is spoken by Lord Kapila to his mother Devahuti. And this is our 11th session, 2 verses, text 11 to 12. I'll go ahead and read the verse here. Madguna shruti matrena mayi sarva guhasaye manogatira vichina yata gangam basombudo lakshanam bhakti yogasya nirgunasya hudaritam ahoitu kya vidhyahitam Yabhakti Purushottame. The manifestation of unadulterated devotional service is exhibited when one's mind is at once attracted to hearing the transcendental name and qualities of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is residing in everyone's heart. Just as the water of the Ganga flows naturally down towards the ocean, such devotional ecstasy, uninterrupted by any material condition, flows towards the Supreme Lord. Srila Prabhupada describes in his purport, the basic principle of this unadulterated pure devotional service is love of Godhead. Madguna Shruti Matrina means just after hearing about the transcendental qualities of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. These qualities are called nirguna. The Supreme Lord is uncontaminated by the modes of material nature. Therefore, he is attractive to the pure devotee. There is no need to practice meditation to attain such attraction. The pure devotee is already in the transcendental stage. And the affinity between him and the Supreme Personality of Godhead is natural and is compared to the Ganga water flowing toward the ocean. The flow of the Ganga cannot be stopped by any condition. Similarly, a pure devotee's attraction for the transcendental name, form, and pastimes of the Supreme Godhead cannot be stopped by any material condition. The word avichina, without interruptions, is very important in this connection. No material condition can stop the flow of the devotional service of a pure devotee. Gora draganya gana gocha goloruharam Gauranga Gudatama Gopyara Kopa Briksham Gopala Gada Ratidam Yati Singha Gora Govinda Deshikavaram Satatam Namami Uttama Adama Kichuna Bachila Chachiya Dileka Kola Kahe Premananda Emona Gauranga Hridaya Dariya Bola Bhaja Gauranga Kaha Gauranga Laha Gaurangera Namare Jai Jana Gauranga Bhaje Sehoya Mara Pranare Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. So we're continuing our discussion on these verses from Srimad Bhagavatam. And we were speaking about the importance of ruchi and the qualities of prema bhakti, the qualities of pure bhakti, and how this ruchi, we should have śraddha, but that śraddha should be endowed with a sense of taste. Otherwise, śraddha or faith by itself is not enough. And we spoke about the importance of Guru Nishta. We spoke about how Jiva Goswami in Bhakti Sandarbha, how he says that it's not enough even that you're surrendered. Tatra yajapi sarna patyaiva sarvam siddhiti. You may get all siddhi, all perfections by being surrendered. But if you want to have Krishna Bhakti Ras, then Jiva Goswami says one should specifically constantly serve the Siksha Guru who teaches the Shastras related to the Lord, and the Diksha Guru, the giver of the mantras of the Lord. And we heard something from Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur in his commentary in the Bhagavatam 4.9.11, where he says, when we speak about this happiness, he says, Sacha Shavana Kirtana Doimai Bhakti Satsangam Vina Nasurasi Bhavatiti Satsangam Pratayate. That even though you may be hearing and chanting about Krishna, there's no sweetness unless you have proper association. And we spoke something about different types of ruchi, ruchi which is dependent on externals and not dependent on externals, and how we get that ruchi by serving the Vaiṣṇavas, and who can really relish is someone who's nivritti tarshai upagiya manad, who is completely free from material activities. That person can really, really relish. And we spoke about how the importance of hearing about the devotees and following in the association of the devotees. And Rupa Goswami, how he stresses this in Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, how important it is to hear about the devotees and their pastimes. And we spoke about the Guru Gayatri Mantra and how Krishnandaya Dhimahi Tanno Guru Prachodayat. Gurudev is always inspiring us because we're meditating on his happiness in Krishna consciousness. And in our last session, we spoke a little bit from a verse from the third canto of the Bhagavatam, chapter 9, in which is described, Tat tad vapu pranayase sadanugrahaya, that the Lord gives his mercy by showing a particular form of himself to the devotees. And so when we speak about this madguna shruti matrena and how the devotee is attracted to the Lord, the verse also indicates that a particular form of the Lord. And the nature of the devotee is they're very ekantic, they're very one-pointed toward that particular form of the Lord. It's said that once Krishna was in Dwarka and he wanted to see Hanuman. And so he requested Garuda, his wing carrier, you go and you bring Hanuman here, tell him it's really important. And so Garuda went there and he told Hanuman, the Lord wants to see you. And he said, what do you mean the Lord wants to see me? Yeah, Krishna in Dwarka, he wants to see you. And Hanuman said, get away from me. I'm meditating on Ramachandra. And he kicked him. And Garuda came back to Krishna and he said, that monkey's really rude. I went to him on behalf of you, and you know what he did? It's really bad. And Krishna asked him, what did you tell him? He said, well, I told him that you're asking to see him. He said, no, you don't understand Hanuman. He said, you go back to him again and tell him that Lord Ramachandra is asking to see him. Okay. So Garuda went back. He said, actually, I'm sorry, I told you the wrong thing, but actually it's Lord Ramachandra who wants to see you. My Lord Ram wants to see me. Oh, and Garuda says, don't worry, it's a long distance, get on my back. I go as fast as wind. And Hanuman said, you're too slow, Baba. And Hanuman just jumped. And by the time Garuda had reached back to Dwarka, Hanuman was already there, and he was offering his pranams, his prayers to the Lord who had manifested himself in the form of Lord Ram. And Rukmini had manifested herself as Sita, and Lakshman and Balaram had manifested himself as Lakshman, and Hanuman was there offering prayers. So the devotee becomes attached to a particular form of the Lord. And we spoke something about that. And we spoke something also in our last session from Priti Sandarbha and also from Paramatma Sandarbha, how when obstacles come, they actually increase the love of the devotees. And we gave the example of Srimati Radharani in that regard. And so in this session today, I'd like to start with a historical story. Everything is historical. Also speaking about Radharani is also historical. It's more than historical because it's going on right now. But there was a great devotee, a lady devotee, whose name was Umabhatiyan. I can hardly pronounce her name right. Umabhatiyani. Umabhatiyani. She was a daughter of the king of Jaisalmer, and she married the king of Jodhpur, Maladev, in 1651. So they were living in Rajasthan. And she was very, very attached to worshiping Krishna. But her husband wasn't into that. He was more into fighting and money and important stuff like that, at least to him. And so his wife wasn't very happy. And so she left him and went back to her father's house. And then her husband apparently had a change of heart that actually I have a really good wife and she's really special devotee. You know? So he thought to himself, I should start practicing bhakti also. And when Umabhatiyani found out about that, because she was very happy, and she decided that I should go back to my husband. But on the way there, she was thinking deeply about it, and she thought, no, this is not good. I don't know, this guy, he seems too attached to me. And I don't know if he's really going to let me practice bhakti. And so then she decided by some divine inspiration that she would neither return to her father's house, nor would she go to her husband's house. Instead, she just stayed in a secluded place to do her bhajan, which is a very extraordinary thing for someone in Vedic culture, especially in that day and age. And she stayed away from everybody, but she just served the vaiṣṇavas. One day, there's several wonderful stories about her. One day, when Vaishnav came to her and told her that my Guru Maharaj's festival, his Vyas Puja, his Guru Puja is coming up, and could you please give me 2,000 rupees, which is like about like having 2 lakhs of rupees today. It's a huge amount of money. And immediately, Umabhatiyani, she went and she sold all of her gold ornaments that she had, and she gave him the money. And then that night, an amazing thing happened. When she went back to her room, she saw all the ornaments were there again. Krishna was very pleased by her, and that increased, seeing that miracle increased her devotion, her attachment to the Lord, and her service to the Vaishnavas. Once there was a thief who approached her, and he was dressed and acting like a devotee, and he heard about this story, so he said, can I please have some of your gold ornaments because I want to do some service for the Lord? And so immediately she gave her gold ornaments to that so-called devotee, and he left very happy. Yeah, I put one over on her, a stupid woman. He's thinking like that. And he went out, and as soon as he left the village where she was living, suddenly his eyesight was lost. He became blind. And then he kind of realized, oh, maybe I made a big mistake. And so he went back to her and said, I think I need to return these to you. And he gave those ornaments back, and then immediately his vision was restored. It was Krishna who had frightened him and made him return the ornaments. And so he fell down at her feet and begged for forgiveness, and he also became a devotee and started living near her, accepted her like her guru. Then in 1677, after the death of King Maladev, who she wasn't even living with, right? That's her husband, she entered into his funeral pyre. She committed sati. She was very, very chaste to her husband, even though she didn't live with him. But it's a wonderful example, historical example, of someone who's so one-pointed in their bhakti, and no one can stop their bhakti. Not even a bad husband, not even so many difficult situations, not even people coming and trying to steal from her or whatever. Krishna will always take care of such devotees. So we should understand, I'd like to speak something further today about the gopis of Vrindavan as an example of this love. But if we want to speak about love, we should understand what is love and what is lust. And our Guru Maharaj would comment that both kam, which is lust, and prem have the same bij dhatu. Kam dhatu and pri dhatu. They have the same meaning. Pritivansha, desiring pleasure. But when we desire pleasure for ourselves, that's lust. And when we desire pleasure for Krishna, That's prem. And Guru Maharaj would comment that they look the same, like glass and a diamond looks the same, but they're not. I don't know what's going on. Nobody's commented anything online. If somebody's watching this, please make some comment. Usually we hit about 20 comments by now. Nobody's done anything. It just surprises me. So we should understand what is really love, what is really lust. And in this regard, there's three types of affection we speak about sometimes. Stula deha priti, sukshma deha priti, and jiva priti, or affection for the material body. And this is what goes on in the name of love in this material world generally today. Oh, baby, you look so hot, you're this and that. And then if she eats more ice cream or something and she becomes fat, then there's no love for her. Sukshma Deha Priti is better. That's subtle. We both like to play chess, but maybe she changes her mind later on and she no longer likes chess. Then that love is spoiled because it's motivated. Both Stula Deha Priti and Sukshma Deha Priti are called Hoitiki Priti. They're love with a motivation. And therefore, they're pratiyata. They have some end to them because there's some motivation. And therefore, they're not yayatma supersedity. They're not pleasing to the self. But jiva priti, when we love someone for their soul, for bhakti, that's real love. Jagadananda Pandit's described nicely in his Prema Vivarta about love. He says, piriti, 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 bole, piriti, bujila ke. Jejana piriti, bujite pare, braja gopi hoya se. Everybody's running around saying, love, 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 I love you. And they have t-shirts and badges, and they send so many things. And on Facebook, you can have a little heart as a like thing. And you so many. But what is all this? Who really understands? Piriti bujilike. Who really understands real love? Jejana piriti bujite pari. The persons who really understand, braja gopi hoya se. The gopis of Vrindavan, they really understand love. Piriti boliya tina te akara virita bhuvana mahaje jahata pashila se majila kitara kalanka laje. The word piriti consists of three syllables. Tina ti akara. There's three syllables to it. And it's famous. Vidita bhuvana maji, throughout the universe. The nature of this love is that when someone becomes touched by it, they become completely obsessed. Ki tara kalanka laji, and they're oblivious even to kalanka, to shame or disrepute. But in this material world, Jagadananda Pandit says, sangsare jadeka purusha ramyani alambana doshi sada rakta mangsa dehe aropa korite naraki hoya sarvada. He says that these people with samsara jateka purusha ramani, they think that this relationships between men and women, this is love. Those people, nara kihoya sarvada, they're always living in hell. You may be here, but they're living actually in hell. Ataiva tara sahaja sadhane Krishna kripa jabi paya jadadeha gandha chadiya se saba chidananda rasa dohya. When such people, they do sahaja sadhana, they do proper sadhana, and Krishna kripa jabipai, they get Krishna's mercy. Then jadadeha gandha, they give up even the fragrance. Chadiya means to give up. Chadiya se saba, they give up all connection of even the fragrance of this bodily attachment. And Chidananda Rashadai, they simply become attached. They aspire for real transcendental pleasure. So this is madguna shruti matrena, monogatira vichina, that continuously it attracts the heart of such a person. So we've been speaking to the necessity, the importance of trying to understand devotees who have this kind of transcendental pleasure. Otherwise, we can't understand. And even when we speak about the devotees, we can understand something. And we may have an argument with someone, and I'll tell that person, hey, my psychophysical nature understands this thing better than your psychophysical nature. That's the stupidity of our arguments in this world today. Because all of us are limited through our knowledge-acquiring senses, and even we're perceiving bhakti in that way. When we may think, well, I understand Gurudev, I understand Krishna, but my understanding is tainted through my psychophysical understanding, and I really can't do anything about it. That's just the way that it is. But we should understand that. And we shouldn't try to insist that my psychophysical understanding is better than your psychophysical understanding. It's wet stool and dry stool. It's all stool. So Prabhupada speaks about the importance of understanding the gopis. It's an interesting conversation I sometimes cite in Boston in 1969, when Prabhupada was speaking to the BTG staff about the standards for Back to Godhead magazine. And they asked Srila Prabhupada, okay, should we speak about the gopis and Radharani? And Prabhupada said, better you don't. And then Prabhupada paused for a moment, and he said the following: the policy should be that people should not understand the gopis to be like ordinary girls. He said you should be careful how to present the gopis. It doesn't mean that we shall never utter even the name of the gopis, or we've taken a vow to boycott the gopis. Don't boycott the gopis, Prabhupada says. He said, there are worshipful devotees. How can we avoid them? How can we avoid them? It's such a very, very important thing. So I'd like to speak something about the nature of the love of the gopis, but to do that, we should understand something philosophical also about their position. Ramananda Roy gives a very beautiful description to Chaitanya Mahaprabhu in the 8th chapter of Madhya Lila. Toward the end of it, he begins speaking about the gopis. And he says there, Radha Krishna Lila Ati Gura Tara Dasya Vatsal Yadi Bhave Nahoy Gochara. He says that this Radha Krishna Lila is Ati means very much. Gudatara, it's very, very confidential. Dasya Vatsal Yadi, those persons in servitorship or in parental love, adi means etc., they can't understand the nature of the gopis' love. Shabbi eka shakki ganer ihanari kara saki hoite hoya e lilara bistara. I just realized what I did wrong. Hare Krishna. So now we're present. I'm sorry, dear devotees, we've been going for 23 minutes and I had it set for just only myself. It's very selfish. Please forgive me. So we've been speaking something about the gopis of Vrindavan. And we'll continue with that. Saki bina e lila pushta nahi hoya Saki lila bistariya Saki asvadoya. Very important verse. Saki bina, without the gopis, e lila pushta nahi hoy. The pastimes of Radha and Krishna can't be nourished. Saki lila bistariya, Saki asvadoya. Only with the cooperation, with the help of the gopis, can these pastimes be bistariya, can they be expanded? Because Saki asvadoya, only the gopis are able to taste this. It's such an important principle. We're speaking about ruchi and about how the nature of a pure devotee is that they're always able to relish. Sometimes we ask a riddle. It's a riddle I made up myself. Don't mind. The question is 3 questions. And it's a very simple riddle. It should be the most obvious answers. The first question is, who's the greatest devotee of Krishna? Second question is, what quality is it that makes that devotee the greatest? Third question is, what's the best proof of the first two questions? And so we're not asking that to everybody here today, but the answer to number one is Srimati Radharani. And the answer should be in such a way nobody's going to argue with it, okay? So Srimati Radharani is the best devotee. Sometimes devotees say, Srila Prabhupada's the best devotee, or Bhakti Vigyan Maharaj, or Anapayani Radha is the best devotee, or this or that. I think, no, not everybody's going to agree with that. Some people will protest. Huh? Radharani, though, nobody's going to argue with that. And what quality is it that Radharani has that makes her the best? Saki Aswadaya. She's relishing. No one can relish Krishna in the way that Radharani does. That's her greatest quality. You can say she cooks. Sometimes what you say, when I ask what is her best quality, she cooks, she offers tambul, she does this, she does that, so many things. But the best quality, according to Chaitanya Charitamrita, Madhila chapter 4, is that she relishes more than anyone else. And because of that, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu himself, in the Chaitanya Charitamrita in Adi Lila chapter 1, text 6, he says that Shri Radhaya pranaya mahima kiddhisovanaya swadyo yena bhuta madhurima kiddhisovamadiya sakyam chasha mandabhava the kiddhisamviti lobat, that he came for these three reasons. The first of which, he wanted to understand what is the Radha Pranaya, or the nature of Radharani's love for him. The second one is that he wanted to understand what is it that she's tasting, because no one else can taste what she's tasting. She has more ecstasy than anyone else. So it's the business of the gopis is to taste, and that aswadhyaya, that's the best service. So then what's the best proof of the first two questions? Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is the best proof. Krishna came as Chaitanya Mahaprabhu to taste the mood and love of Radharani. So Ramananda Roy goes on, Saki bina elilai anyara nahi gati Saki bhave jaitanre kori anugati Radha Krishna kunja seva Saja se paya se sadya paiti ar nahika upaya. Saki bina e lilaya. Without the sakis, without the gopis, you can't enter into these pastimes. And what in these pastimes is the Sankirtan movement of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. You can't enter into it unless you take help from the gopis of Vrindavan. And therefore, Srila Vishwanath Chakrabarti Thakur is described, Nikunja yuno rati keli siddhya ya yali bir yuktir apekshaniya tatradi dakshat ativalabhasya vande guru Sri Charanara Vindam. That Gurudev, he's always helping, he's assisting in bringing Radha and Krishna together. That's the behavior of the gopis. And he's also engaging his disciples in the same behavior. This is the kirtan of our sampradaya. So without the help of the gopis, we can't enter into these pastimes. And he says that only someone who Saki Bhave, who worships the Lord in the ecstasy of the gopis and follows his anugatya, who's following the gopis, only that person can worship Radha and Krishna in the kunjas of Vrindavan. Only such a person can understand the conjugal love between Radha and Krishna. There's no other procedure for understanding it. And then Ramananda Roy quotes a verse from Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami's Govinda Lilamrita. Or maybe Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami is quoting this verse. I don't know. It's a little confusing. Vibhurapi sukha rupa swaprakashopi bhava kshan api nahi radha Krishna yo yaritte swaha pravahati rasa pushtim chidibhutya evesha Shrayati na padama samkasakinam rasagya. He says that the pastimes of Radha and Krishna, or swapakasha, prakasha. They're self-effulgent. And their sukha roop, their happiness personified, those pastimes are unlimited. They're all powerful. But these pastimes are never complete without the gopis, unless the gopis are also there. And therefore, Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami says, unless you take shelter of the gopis, you cannot enter into the company of Radha and Krishna. You can't even become interested in the pastimes of Radha and Krishna unless you take shelter of the gopis. So this is our introduction today. I'd like to speak a little pastime now. A wonderful pastime from Rupa Goswami's Lalita Madhav, which beautifully illustrates the principle of Maguna Shruti Matrina Manogatir Avichina, how the mind is such a devotee becomes completely attached to Krishna, to a particular form of Krishna. And this is from the 6th act of Lalita Madhav. I have to say a little something about the background of this book, and it's a very difficult book to understand. Very, very difficult book to understand. In the first 3 acts of Lalita Madhav, Rupa Goswami describes Krishna's pastimes in Vrindavan, and in the 4th act, he speaks about Krishna leaving Vrindavan. And Radharani becomes Unmadana. She becomes mad in separation from Krishna. And very difficult thing to understand. Radharani commits suicide. She goes and drowns herself in the waters of the Jamuna. But Radharani has an eternal spiritual body. There's no question of her dying. So she comes out and she appears before Suryadev, the sun god. And Radharani at that time, she has this fantastic jewel which was on the head of Shankachuda. And she gives that jewel to the sun god. And then later, Suryadev gives that jewel, and it then becomes known as the Shamantaka jewel. He gives a jewel, and he gives Radharani to his devotee named Satyajit. It's a little difficult to understand. And then Satyajit has some problems with Krishna. It's a complicated, long story. You can read about that in Krishna book. I won't go into that. But he realizes, I committed a big offense to Krishna. And so he decided to send his daughter, who he's thinking is his daughter, who's actually Srimati Radharani, but now she's kind of hidden in the form of Satyabhama. She seems like one of the queens of Dwarka, but she's actually Srimati Radharani. She sends her along with her mother, his mother, Brida. Brida in Bengali, in Sanskrit, literally means old person. Sends her with this old lady to be given to Krishna as a gift in marriage. And Radharani was very, very unhappy. But she thought to herself that the sun god told me that until Krishna ties this Shamantaka jewel on my wrist, then I shouldn't say anything that my name is actually Radha. And I should just present myself as Satyabhama. And so Brida, this old lady, brings Srimati Radharani, she brings Srimati Radharani to Krishna's palace. Krishna wasn't there at that time. Krishna's first wife is there, according to Lalita Madhav. It's a little complicated. We're getting to this point. That lady's name was Rukmini. That was Krishna's first wife. Now, according to Rupa Goswami and Lalita Madhav, that Rukmini is actually Chandravali. And Chandravali is the cousin sister of Srimati Radharani, but now she appears to be like Rukmini. And it's a very interesting thing. When Maharaj Bhishmaka got Rukmini married to Krishna, he said, okay, we agree that to let our daughter marry you, but there's one condition. You can't marry anybody else. And Krishna thought to himself, I already heard that all the gopis, Radharani, committed suicide, and I don't want anybody other than Radha anyway, but this Chandravali, Rukmini, reminds me of Radha, and therefore I'll take this vow. Okay. So that same Chandravali now is appearing as Rukmini, and she's there to greet this girl, and she looks at Satyabhama Radha, and she thinks, oh, this girl, she's extremely beautiful. She started getting a little bit nervous. And she was thinking, and when Radharani also said Chandravali, she thought, she's just as beautiful as the girls of Braj. Huh? And then Brida speaks up. She says, my dear Queen Rukmini, my son Satyajit, he offended Krishna with a Shamantaka jewel affair, and now he wants to give his daughter Satyabhama to him. Please be very friendly and affectionate to her. Mm-hmm. And Radharani's thinking to herself, this old lady can say whatever she wants, but the only reason I'm here is because Suryadev told me I have to come here. And then Chandravali, she kind of forces a smile, huh? Like sometimes girls do when they have some so-called friendship. And she says, oh, noble lady, it's so nice to have a good friend like such. I'll take good care of her. Don't worry, you can go. And then Brida, that old lady, says, oh, thank you very much. And then Chandravali turns to her friend, Madhavi, and she says, this girl is dangerous. When our Krishna sees her, I don't know what's going to happen to him. He likes girls. And Madhavi kind of shakes her head and says, yeah, what you're saying is true. This girl is so very, very beautiful. And then Chandravali is thinking to herself, this girl, she acts like somebody who's in love with Krishna and separated from him, because she knows the love of the girls of Vrindavan. How is it that even her suffering makes her even more beautiful? And then Chandravali Rukmini tells Satyabhama Radha, she says, ta ehi, you come here. Parikama, say chitta bhutam. I want to examine your heart, the contents of your heart. And she told Satyabhama, Sahi Satyabhami, Esha apano sabhami. Really, I feel so much love for you. I swear, it's true. And Radharani is thinking to herself, actually what she's saying is true. I can feel it. And somehow I also have some affection for her. She doesn't understand. This is her cousin's sister. And then Chandravali Rukmini says, Bahini ki satumam dhumana laki asi. My dear sister, Bahini, why you seem so unhappy? And Radharani Satyabhama doesn't want to explain. She says, oh, my dear queen, my father sent me very suddenly here, and therefore I'm feeling a little uncomfortable. And Chandravali says, don't be anxious, it's okay. I'll personally place you in the hand of the king. And then Radharani, she makes a kind of face. And she says, with humility, she says, my dear queen, if you're actually affectionate to me, please don't ever speak this way to me again. And she bowed down. She offers obeisances to Chandravali. And Chandravali says, what's the problem? And then Radharani told her, Dei jata pusisanamam bina suni adi. She says, if you really want to make me happy, then Dei, O queen, jata purishinamam bina suni adi. You give me a place where I can stay, where I don't even hear the word man. I don't want to have anything to do with any men. And Chandravali Rukmini, she became very, very happy about that, because she thought this is going to be a problem. This girl's so beautiful. If my Krishna sees her, it's going to cause all kinds of troubles. So she said, oh, we can arrange something about that. We care so much for you, of course. And then she called for Madhavi. She says, you bring that nice girl, Navabrinda Devi, here. And Navabrinda Devi can take care. Madhavi immediately understood what Chandravali was thinking, because Navabrinda Devi was in charge of a wonderful garden called Navabrindavan, which is spoken about by Rupa Goswami and Lalita Madhav, and also by Sanatana Goswami in his Brihad Bhagavatamrita. And that garden was created by Vishvakarma for Krishna, who was feeling separation from Vrindavan. And so Vishvakarma created a garden which was just like Vrindavan. He's the original landscape architect, Vishvakarma. He makes this beautiful, beautiful garden there. And even he made a deity of Krishna. Now what Rukmini Chandravali doesn't know is that Krishna every day was going to that garden. And he would tell his wife, well, sweetheart, got to go out and kill some demons today. Got to go to the office. I got a lot of things to do. Some of my devotees are worshiping me. Got to go. Yudhishthira Maharaj has a there's a yogi he's doing, and I got to go to that. But I'll be back later today. And then he goes to the Never Vrindavan garden. And he feels separation from Srimati Radharani. It's a very beautiful story. So then Radharani, she hears this Chandravali speaking, and she's thinking to herself, how is it this lady is just like my sister cousin Chandravali? So then the next act in Lalita Madhav, in our story, if you can follow what we're speaking about, I hope it's not too technical. It's a very, very deep topic. Later on in this Never Vrindavan garden, Radharani Satyabhama is sent there, much to her happiness, by Chandravali Rukmini, who's thinking, now this is really good. I'm going to stick her in this garden and my husband won't see her. And very, very good. And Chandra and Rukmini, Satyabhama Radha, is also thinking very good. In this way, I won't have to live with that Dwarkadish fellow who wants to be with him anyway. Not understanding that that's actually is Krishna. So, meanwhile, they're having different discussions in that Never Vrindavan garden. And one day, Never Vrinda Devi kind of slips. And she tells Radharani Satyabhama, don't you know that the emperor of Dwarka is also Brajaraj, the king of Vrindavan, which means Krishna? And when Radharani hears it, she becomes very excited. She says, Avi, such an Adam, is this the truth? And then Never Vrinda Devi realizes, ooh, I said something I shouldn't have said. I made a mistake. And she kind of covers up. She says, oh, he's not only addressed as the emperor, as a Raj, but they also call him Ramachandra and Upendra. And they also call him the king of Braj. In other words, now Never Vrinda Devi is saying, actually, he's God, he's Bhagavan. Sometimes he's Ramachandra, sometimes he's Upendra, sometimes they call him the king of Braj. And then Bakula Devi, who's there, one of the Sakhis in that garden, she speaks up to Radharani and she says, Halado banamai nivandam muki a nadehi ra indam. She says, therefore, I'm telling you, give up your attachment for this other man and just give all your energy to please the emperor, this fellow whose name is Dwarkadish. Radharani looks down at the ground. And Rupa Goswami gives a very beautiful verse describing the words of Radharani at that time. Radha says, yes, Shriya. Yes, tang saspurati chikare kekikucha pranityu hara kante vilu tati kritastula gunja valibi veno vaktre rachayati rucham hanta chetas tato me rupam vishvotaram apihare nanyad angi kuroti. With a tear coming down her cheek, Srimati Radharani, she says, my beloved Krishna, he wears a peacock feather on his head. And he has a gunja necklace around his neck. And he has a flute pressed to his lips. That Krishna brings us great happiness. And she says, my heart, Rupam Vishvotaram api harer nanyarangi koroti. I won't be happy with any other form, even if it's Krishna himself. But I want that Krishna in Vrindavan. Even if you're telling me this is Bhagavan, I'm not interested. I'm only interested in Krishna. And Bakula Devi speaks of Sahi Uju Avidui Asijam Kadore Vitasam Sutu Rajasi. She's there speaking in Brijbas. She said, my dear girl, you're a very simple girl. That's why you love so deeply this hard-hearted man. And Radharani, she says, Mukde Maivam Bravi, hey, you fool, don't speak like this to me. And then Radharani says, Odasinya duraparita hridaya katinyam alambatam kamam shamala sundaro mohisaki swari sahasram samaha kintu branti bharadapi kshanamidam tatra priyebhya priye cheto janmani janmani panayata dasham name hashyati. She says, fool, don't speak like that. Huh? She says, even if he's harsh with me, even if he neglects me for thousands of years, even if I don't get to see him for countless births, my heart will never give up the loving service of my beloved Krishna. Adarshana mamahatam korotuva. Speaking in the mood of Srimati Radharani when he was in Jagannath Puri, Mahaprabhu composed these 8 verses of Shikshastika prayers, which are in Anjalila chapter 20 of Chaitanya Charitamrita. And he says there, Adarshana mamahatam korotuva mat prananatas tu sevanabra. Whether he gives me darshan or doesn't give me darshan, whether he's a lampata, he goes to some other girl, I don't care. Mat prananatas tu sevanabra. Krishna is the Lord of my life and no one else. So this is really madguna, shruti matrena manogatir avichina. This is the attraction, the one-pointed attraction of the gopis for Krishna. Krishna in the Gita, he says that vyavasayatmika buddhi ekeha kurunandana bahusaka yanantasya buddhi avyavisayana. That you should be one-pointed on this path. But who's really one-pointed on this path of love? It's the gopis of Vrindavan. It's only the gopis of Vrindavan who really understand love. So this verse, these verses spoken by Lord Kapila Dev, indirectly really they're describing the gopis and Srimati Radharani because they can't describe anyone else. So I'm going to stop there, and I'd like to ask the devotees if they have any reflections or comments. I have to apologize to Lynn and Madhupati Prabhu and Mahendra and different devotees who joined a little bit late. That I had the setting turned on wrong. I'm going to post a full video of this talk today later on Facebook, so if you want to go back, you can see that. You missed all of our introductory, and a nice story we told also from Rajasthan. But I'd like to ask the devotees if they have any reflections. Madhupati Prabhu has made a comment, a question. Is this Nava Vrindavan there because Krishna likes Parakiya Ras the most? Well, in his prayers in his Jai Radhe, Jai Krishna, Jai Vrindavan, the poet who's written that song only identifies himself as Krishna Das, and we're not really sure exactly what Krishna Das it is. He says that Parakiya Bhave Jaha Brajeti Prachar, that this Vrindavan, what is the preaching of Vrindavan? It's this Parakiya Bhav. It's this love, this so-called married love. And that prachar, or preaching, or expanding things, is done just by that Parakiya Ras existing. So by stating this, the author of that song is indirectly indicating that this Braj, Vrindavan, is really all about Parakiya Ras. Anvaya Vyatireka Byam Yatshat Sarvata Sarvata, that directly or indirectly, every leaf, every blade of grass, every tree, every cowherd boy, Mother Yashoda, all the elderly gopis, everyone has some connection with Parakiya Ras in Vrindavan. Vrindavan it's Madhurja Moyi Dham. It's the place full of Madhurja Ras. And in particular, it's a place full of that Parakiya Ras. So, yeah, I would agree with that, Madhupati Prabhu. So now I want to turn to the devotees here in the room and ask if you'd like to make some comments, Sachitanai Prabhu. Tell us what you're walking away with, what your reflections are today. I'll give you the microphone. You okay?
Yeah. Thank you. So at the last moment, you just mentioned that this is the real meditation of Madguna Sruti Matrena that you've been mentioning for the last few lectures. This is the real focus, example. And to bring that example to the practical devotional service for us, because according to that, it's impossible to be at that, almost impossible, maybe impossible to be at that level of Srimati Radharani. It's exclusive. So he says that's the real thing. So anybody else besides her, they might be Nitya Siddhas, servants of Krishna. They're not that 100%. So what to speak of us? But
nice question. Thank you. So we should understand the nature of Srimati Radharani's love. Even in the material world, if someone really loves someone, they feel like there's nothing I can do that I won't do for them. There's no way I can repay my love for them. They can't stop thinking of that person. That's why traditionally school is meant for brahmacharis and girls separately, because otherwise he's sitting next to a pretty girl and he can't focus on what's going on in the class. Because the nature of love is that someone becomes so one-pointed with it. So Krishna becomes so one-pointed with Radharani's love, because her love is the most one-pointed. When we quote this verse, Vyavasyatmika buddhi, that's describing Radharani. It's not describing Krishna. The verse says that we should be one-pointed, not bahusaka, hinantascha buddhya vyavisayanam, not multi-branched. Well, Krishna's maha bahusaka, because he reciprocates with every single living entity in the universe. With the cowherd boys, with Mother Yashoda and Nanda Maharaj, with the impersonalists, with the Mayavadis, with the Christians, with the atheists, he reciprocates with everyone. And so for him to repay his love to Radha, or the love of Radha, because he promises that I will always reciprocate accordingly. Yayatamam prapadyante. However someone approaches me, I'll reciprocate. But he tells the gopis, napariyeham niravadya samyudam. I don't know how to reciprocate with you. So to reciprocate, he also has to become one-pointed. And so he comes as Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And to repay his debt to Radharani, it's not when you have a debt, if I owe Sachi Tanoi Prabhu $1,000 and I say, no problem, Prabhuji, here you go, here's 1,000 rupees. I've repaid my debt. He may not be very happy with me, or give him 1,000 rubles or something, right? That's not, you haven't properly repaid your debt. That you have to pay me in like currency, in the same currency. So this is a debt of love, and Krishna has to repay his debt of love. How is that love manifested? The love is manifested in the way that through bhajan. Bhaj means to love. So Srimati Radharani, she's doing her bhajan, and it manifests in the way she cooks, and the way she sings, and the way she tells stories, and the way she listens to stories, in these different processes of Navavidi Bhakti. Those are the manifestation of bhajan. Bhajan doesn't just mean sitting down with a harmonium singing, but bhajan means to worship the Lord with love. So this is a debt of love, and for Krishna to repay that debt, he has to pay in the same currency. And so he has to experience the same feelings that Radharani is experiencing, and he's doing that through the same kind of kirtan that Radharani is experiencing. Radharani, in separation from Krishna, her Saki and her gopis and manjaris, the assistants of her friends, come around her and they do kirtan of Krishna to help pacify the feelings of separation of Srimati Radharani. So Krishna does the same thing. The same gopis, they come as Ramananda Roy and Sripdhamana Goswami, as Raghunath Das Goswami and Rupa Goswami and other personalities, and they do kirtan for the Lord to help him to taste that. Now, I'm getting to your question. What is the relevance of all of this for us? This is like, whoa, this is way, way, way beyond me. But when we sing this song every day, Nikunja Yuno Rati Keli Sidya Ya Yali Bir Yuktir Apekshaniya, that Gurudev is Apeksha. He's very, very expert in arranging these affairs. This also means the kirtan of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And it means that to help Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is Krishna to understand the feelings that Radharani has in separation from Krishna. He's assisting that kirtan. And the amazing thing, this is the kirtan of our sampradaya. All of our acharyas are taking part in this kirtan, and just as Swarup Damodar and Roy Ramananda, they're engaging Raghunath Das Goswami in that kirtan, and Rupa Goswami is engaging other people in that kirtan, and everyone in that kirtan is engaging all their followers and servants who are our acharyas, who are our gurujanas, and they're engaging all their servants and followers who are engaging Srila Prabhupada, who are engaging our gurujanas in that kirtan. And directly or indirectly, we're all helping that kirtan of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. It's an amazing, amazing thing. So we very much have something relevant with that. But to enter into that kirtan, as we were hearing, the only possible way that we can enter into this Madhurya Ras, Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami is saying, is through the mercy of the gopis. That means through the mercy of our Gurudev. Without our Gurudev, we can't enter into that. And therefore we sing every day, Nikunja Yuna Rati Keli Siddhyai. Is that helpful? Yeah. Krishna Kun? Okay. Shampriya, you want to make any? Umabhatiyani Radha, you're our last hope. Do you have any comments or reflections?
Yes, thank you so much for description of this one-pointed exclusive love of Srimati Radharani on the example of the story from Lalita Madhava. And thank you for your reply to Sachaitanya Prabhu that our Gurudev, he's the gopi, which allow us to enter this service.
Even if he's not directly a guru, he's an assistant of it. He's not directly a gopi.
Yeah, he's assistant of the gopi. So. Yeah, it doesn't matter, actually. And I really appreciate the story of Hanuman, how he was focused on a particular form and he rejected to see other form, and the same as Radharani. And also you said that the Lord's mercy, when he manifests his particular form to a particular devotee. This is interesting. Because there are so many descriptions of the mercy of the Lord, and this is one of the very important descriptions of the mercy of the Lord. Thank you.
Yes, so Srimati Radharani, in this long, little complicated story we told, I hope everybody can follow it. The point that we are getting to by telling all this is that Radharani, she's not even attracted to Krishna in Dwarka. Even though they're telling her, it's the same person, wake up, it's the same. No, I want my Krishna with a peacock feather, because Krishna doesn't have a peacock feather in Dwarka. That's for Vrindavan. He doesn't have a flute in Dwarka. That's for Vrindavan. So Radharani's focus is so one-pointed. So in our next session, we're going to give another wonderful, amazing example about the one-pointedness of Srimati Radharani. Finally, we're going to get to tell our story about Amarnath and Paita. So stay tuned. And that'll be, today is Wednesday, it'll be on Friday. And next Wednesday, coming up, we're going to have a special katha about Srimati Radharani on her appearance day. That'll be next Wednesday. So thank you all very much. Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Vanchakalpa Darubhascha, Kripa